Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Moneyball. We're going to be doing a Moneyball series again on the channel. It's been a while, hasn't it? It's been a while since I did a video. I've not really done as much content recently. Like when I have had a bit of time to play myself in my own, spare time, as it were. What I've been trying to do is share what I've been doing with people on mainly Twitter or X. That's what I've been doing there. And it's a lot harder to record a video, edit it, and make it all look good. I just didn't really have the time to do that, but we have the time now. So here we go. We are going to be doing a Moneyball series with
Royale Union Saint-Gilloise.
I think that's how you pronounce it. If it's incorrect, blame the AI that told me how to pronounce it that way. Lots of nicknames. Union is one. Probably refer to us as Union a lot during the save. And this is going to be a no attribute stats only save. So yes, we will be playing as Union in our Moneyball save, in our Moneyball General Manager save. So first of all, you might ask, what is Moneyball? Moneyball was a book written about the Oakland Athletics, a baseball team in America who looked at almost purely stats, metrics and data to put together a team to try and bridge the gap between them and the teams that had far more money than them, looking at stats only really to recruit players and to put a team together to try and win. And the main part of it is you're using stats to find value where other people may not be. And the famous quote in the film is, you're not looking to buy players, you're looking to buy wins. I'm not going to do it on this video. This is more like episode 0 of, what's the save going to be about. But there's loads of stuff we can go into about not just the film. Most people have seen the film, but if you've not either read the book or listened to the audiobook of Moneyball, you'll realize there's even more stuff that maybe doesn't quite get put in. There's only so much, there's only so many things you can really include in the film. But yeah, that's largely it. That's what you're looking to do. And we could go into loads of detail about how you get to the numbers, what numbers you need to look for, and how it translates over to football too. In terms of what Moneyball is and how it gets translated over to football, I went into quite a bit of detail about this in my episode 1 of my Moneyball series, FM23. So what I'll do is leave a link in the description of my video there, and there's a chapter where I talk about what Moneyball is, how it got translated over to football, and go into a bit of detail there. So I'll probably just save that for there to keep this video a bit shorter. You can go and look at it there, and we'll talk about it lots during the series. But in terms of what is a Moneyball save in FM, it can be many things. Everybody can play it differently, right? You don't have to have attributes off at all. Absolutely not. You can have them on. It's completely up to you if you'd like to do that. I'm going to do it for an added challenge. But loosely, what you're going to be looking at is regardless if you have attributes on or off, you're supposed to be looking purely at the stats for when you're recruiting players. How you get to the metrics you're going to use to sign the players is very different. I will explain how I did it. So this is my spreadsheet here. What I did is I holidayed an entire season prior to this series. And then what I did is I looked at the league winners of England, Italy, and Spain, went to each of them and looked at the best performing player in each position. So, for example, we've got 3 players here. What we do then is from my custom views that I have, we add all their stats together. So these numbers, the total amounts here is all 3 of those players added together, and then it's divided by 3 to create what we're calling it the Moneyball number. So it's really an average is what it is. And it might be that there is not a single player that hits this exact thing because it's the average of the top 3 players, right? And it might create a player that doesn't really exist. But this is the baseline. What this basically is saying that if you do get a player, right, if you do get a player that turns up these stats at a comparable level to your team, the data would indicate they're going to be a very effective player for your football club. The difference between baseball and football, the biggest obvious one, especially when you look at Moneyball, the book came out in 2003, so think about how different things were back then. But in baseball, you're sort of looking at the Major League Baseball, you're looking at just one division, one nation. So when you're looking at a player's stats, how they've done over 5 years in the MLB, you can compare it against your own players because you're all playing against the same team. So the level of baseball, the level of the sport is the same, however you look. And then if you look at the divisions down, you can then create a good correlation of if they're getting these stats in tier 2, it's not quite as impressive as tier 1. And you can sort of scale it, right? Difference with football, not only do different leagues have different abilities, there's completely different cultures and styles within these leagues too. So you've got a huge number of things affecting it. And then in FM, what I'd say the biggest thing to watch out for is role use of the manager, of the AI manager for the player you're looking at. For example, there might be a player that when you go to look at, I don't know, wingers, I think I had 2 City players in this one because, and this one I've got 2 Premier League players because the, I guess it was Real Madrid didn't have a winger. They didn't play a winger. So I decided to go with 2 Premier League players instead because I think one of them, I think it was City, won the Champions League as well in my save. So, that's why I went with it here. But what you can see is the dribbles per 90 of each player. We've got a 3.59, 4.13, and 4.7. Now, if any of these players were to be played in a different role that maybe wasn't inside forward and wasn't inverted winger, this might drastically drop quite a bit. I bet if I had Rafael and I put him on a winger role in my own tactic, that he'd get above the 3.59. And there can be quite a drastic difference. I've seen players in this kind of save before where 1 year they have like a, I don't know, 1.99 dribbles per 90. The next year they've got 4.7. And the clear difference is new manager, new player role that they've been asked to play. So the roles can make a big difference. So it's something you've just got to be aware of. So although this is a baseline number at an average, you can move off it. And there's a very, very good book. I highly recommend it. It's definitely going in the description, called How to Win the Premier League by Ian Graham. Ian Graham was part of, or was the lead data and analyst person at Liverpool, whose owners, incidentally, were the ones that took on the Moneyball system from the Oakland days and won the World Series with Boston Red Sox. And in the book, he talks about a specific player. He talks about Andrew Robertson, right? And he mentions that for a couple of years, I think it was, they were tracking him, and his defensive metrics were just not up to the standards that they were looking for, even when factoring in that he was playing in a team that got relegated and one of the worst, I think, goals against in the history of the league. Even when factoring these things in, he was still coming out below what they would need to be able to sign a player. And they presented that to Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp basically said that we can ignore that if he's good at everything else because I like to utilise attacking fullbacks. And it's a good example of where going completely purely off numbers, you can sort of move off it for certain situations. Not that I'm going to do that, by the way. We're going to apply basic, like, original Moneyball principles. We're going purely off stats, really. But the reason I'm using that example is that even when people have used this type of stuff, and lots of real-life clubs hate the term Moneyball because it never really is pure Moneyball. That's a great example, what I've just given you there. And the other part to it, right, the reason why I say you can use attributes is in real life when teams use data like Brighton, Brentford, Liverpool, whoever it is, they don't look at the data and blindly just not look. In fact, what Ian says in the book quite clearly is that I think they made a mistake on a couple of players early on. Giovanni Dos Santos at Tottenham when he was working for Spurs, and he says that the big mistake they made with Dos Santos, it wasn't that his stats weren't good, it was the sample size, and they didn't really watch him beyond, like, I guess the big matches, right, that he was playing for Barcelona. And if they would have had a larger sample size, they probably wouldn't have ended up signing him. But they went off a small sample size, and it was nowhere near enough. I think it was like 15 starts, something really small on the data that they were looking at. Really, really small. Go read the book if you're interested. But the point is that Liverpool made a really big point that they would never sign players again without extensive video analysis. So teams don't go into it blind, like, and because some of you are going to say, am I going to remove like the star ratings and stuff like that? I'm not. And the reason is that you're not blind. Like, scouts are going to have their opinion of a player. Your video analysis scouts are going to have opinions of the player. When you bring a player in and you watch them, like if we were coaching the team or the general manager in real life, we would be attending training sessions. You can have your own eyes and you can see what you think of the player, right? So nobody's completely blind. On top of that, we'll get to team selection in a bit, but I don't even pick the team. So, so it doesn't matter what I think anyway, because the AI manager's going to have to pick the team anyway. But yeah, anyway, the point of this was that although this is the number, it doesn't mean if nobody appears, you just go, okay, well, we'll try again next year. Like, you can tweak it, right? Like, for example, if I was looking for a player here and nobody came up with these stats, the first thing I would drop is passes completed per 90 pass completion. I think Kevin De Bruyne said this in an interview a year ago. They said to him, Rodri's pass completion is, blah, blah, blah. And he said, maybe that matters to somebody in his position in the pivot areas, but it's not something that he looks at or cares about whatsoever. And he thinks that it would be counterproductive to do so because progressive passes, chances created, those are the things that really matter. And if you aren't failing with some passes, you're probably not trying enough of them, right? So these two don't really matter for this position. So, I mean, I would just get rid of them. They're just there anyway. To be fair, I could just get rid of those completely from this, but it's already in the filter and I've already done the soak, so I'm not doing it again. So they're just going to stay. But those are the first two I would just get rid of. But that's a good example, right, of that. And it might be in a different situation that we have... let's say, although it says CM, this is really a pivot grouping here, as you can see a lot of defensive stuff. Let's say we're playing with two pivots, right? And let's say that I've got one pivot who's clearly really good, progressive passes, chances created, dribbles per 90. He's clearly more of an aggressive pivot player, a more box-to-box, creative one. And so when I'm looking for players the next year, maybe if nobody appears on our Moneyball number, maybe we just remove the in-possession stuff and say, okay, what pivots are out there that are scoring just out of possession metrics, and then let's see how far below they are on the in-possessions. It might be just that, I don't know, let's say, for example, he's got 59 passes completed per 90, pass completion is 97%, but his dribbles per 90 is like 0.1. He just doesn't run with it because he's just a passing player. That'd be fine. A defensive player who doesn't dribble with it but is very accurate with the ball, get him in, so basically the point I'm making is it's not like doesn't hit these exact numbers, you're gone. You could get way more in depth with it as well. Like you could, what you could start to do is look at partnerships, right? You could look at fullback, for example. You could say that this is showing his value because these are not being corrected by Jack here. Let's get those in. It could be, for example, right, that you don't get this with your right back or your left back, but maybe one side is more attacking, one side's more defensive. But between the two of them, they average out in the aggregate. They hit this number between the two of them. Maybe you do that. Obviously, football is a bit different to that because there's a really good chance in a team that the two fullbacks don't do the same role, right? One is forming a part of a back three like a Kyle Walker, like maybe Ben White or other players. And maybe the left side is a player that goes into midfield like a Zinchenko, like a Cancelo, somebody like that, right? They're not, although they're playing the same position left and right, they're not doing the same role. So you don't really need to aggregate. You don't really need to get an aggregate the way that in baseball is a very, very different, of course, very different sport. So, yeah. But I mean, if you do create a symmetrical tactic, if you do, you could do that. You could aim for that. But yeah, anyway, that's the spreadsheet. That's what I'm going to be going off of. FM Stag and Musterman, two of my favourite people in the FM community and two friends of mine, they have done something similar to this. And I can never remember exactly how they did it, but they did something very, very similar. I've just done something quite similar to what they've done that they use in their files, but I've just done it for myself so that I have it. In previous saves that I've done, I've matched it to my exact division. Because if we're playing and we're trying to get to that top 5 European, challenging level, I think it's okay to try and hit those metrics and try and hit there, rather than look at our own internal data of our own league. So what I would do at the end of not just the end of every season, actually, every January, every half a season, every transfer window, what I would do is do a massive scout through here. I think what I'll do is the same thing I've done on my own Midtjylland save, which I've done on Twitter, on X, is that the only way I can sign players is from this player search and through this method of using the data to reference in the players we're searching for. Scout recommendations, I mean, wow. I think I shouldn't use those. If you read the book How to Win the Premier League, that would be completely legitimate as long as they then hit the metrics afterwards. But I think for the simplicity of the save, it's much better for me to only use this way to sign players. So they'd have to appear in this sort of area here. I'm just trying to make somebody appear here for a second. Yeah, so we've got somebody here in the Premier League. So what we would do is we would search for the metrics for a player. They would appear here, and if they appear here and they're hitting the metrics that we need, we would then sign the player. Of course, that's the idea. And we do this every half a season. We'll do this every January, every summer transfer window, and see who comes up and see who we can get in. And as you can see, player attributes are turned off. We have no idea how good this guy is. And that will go on all the way through. Now, revealing player attributes, what I think I'm going to do is at the end of every season, we look at the players that left us that season, both summer and January. I think with Paris, what I did was like, in season 4, I looked at season 1, season 5, season 2, and I just kept going like that. And the reason I did it so far back was that I didn't want a good idea of how good somebody was. So let's say I had two wingers that were, I don't know, my two starting wingers, and the reports are all the same, like the coaching reports, they sound like they're a similar type of player, and we sell a player, and then like a few months later, we find out how good that player really is, like his attributes, we then sort of know how good the other player is. Now, I don't think that matters too much, but do let me know what you think about that. About player attribute reveal, I always go for what the audience would prefer. So we can either do it at the end of every transfer window, every season, or I can do it like 3 years in advance and go back, so we can do it that way. Whichever way you will prefer. I think the only issue wrong with that is then you're looking at players 3 years on from when you let them go. So they can be quite different from when you lost them. Or maybe you didn't lose them, maybe you wanted to get rid of them, who knows. But yeah, that's definitely up for debate. Whatever you'd prefer, do let me know. And I can tweak the format for that, because it's not something I have to worry about until the end of the first season. So there we are. Okay, so the question is, Jack, why Union? Why we selected them? Is there any particular reason? Yes, right there. That's the reason. They are partly owned by Tony Bloom, who, if you didn't know, is the owner of Brighton. Brighton, very famously known for their data Moneyball-led approach, which I'm sure they hate. Not as much as Brentford hate it, but yeah, I don't know why they hate it. I would embrace it personally if I was them. I love the term. I love the film. Love the book. I love everything about Moneyball, but it's not always reciprocal, that feeling, when you talk to people within football. I don't know why. Maybe because people associate it with just purely buying low and selling high, which obviously it is not. That is a byproduct of what happens. If you do it correctly, that is obviously what's going to happen. But you know, if you're just buying low and selling high and not even looking at stats, and you're just a wheeler and dealer, basically, get the old Dow boy in the transfer market. But yeah, anyway, this is the reason why. So Union are linked with Brighton, as you can see here, nice and clearly. They are our friends, our family club, as it were. And that is the reason I decided to choose them. I didn't want to choose a Premier League team because, I mean, it would have been Brighton if I did, of course. But I just felt like that I wanted to do a team really in the top tier to begin with. But if it was going to be a top tier, it couldn't be one of the top 5 leagues, right? If it was going to be one of the top 5 like countries, I probably would have done like a second tier team like Paris FC. And I've done Paris FC, I've done 1860 Munich before in normal like Moneyball saves. I say normal because this is a GM save, and we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, that's the reason why we're going to have Tony Bloom as the owner. We're going to have our data-led Moneyball approach here in Belgium. We're going to try and win the league for the first time in quite a while. Don't forget, this was before the season in real life where I believe they won it. Yeah, in real life, Union actually did win the regular season part of that. And we'll talk about the league structure in a second, but the regular season they won, and the championship round, they actually finished second, according to this, on 49 points to Club Brugge's 50. Yeah, we'll talk about this. I mean, if you've played in Belgium before, you're already going to know what I'm going to be talking about and going to say here, but yeah, interesting setup. But yeah, anyway, as far as we're concerned, starting in June 2023, as you can see, how far are we going back? It's been a long time. So our first target is to win the league and become champions of Belgium while winning any domestic trophies that we can too. That's the first target. And the second part is then trying to establish yourself as the main team in Belgium. And then obviously trying to win a European trophy is going to be the main target for us, and that could take quite a long time. Now, the reason I say that, in a Moneyball GM save that I'm doing here, we are not playing as the manager, as in the head coach. We are the general manager. So what's going to happen is I'm going to be the manager of the club as far as the game's concerned, but we are the general manager. We are the Billy Beane of the team, right? We're going to be hiring managers to implement our Moneyball strategy for us. And there's a lot of different ways you can do this. I like the idea of this save, the concept of this save. However, I thought I wanted to be able to still watch my team play matches, really, and not after the fact, live. And the way you do that is like this. You add a second manager who's unemployed, who basically, while you're doing stuff with your own club, he can just stay on holiday, be out the way. And then when you want to watch a game, what you do is your main manager of the club goes on holiday. So for Anderlecht here, let's say we want to watch this game. On the 28th of July, we go on holiday. And the other manager who's like in the football world, he then attends as a spectator. So then you can watch your team play the whole game. And your assistant manager, who's really the manager. So it's going to say assistant manager, right, on their on the staff page here. When it says assistant manager, that's really the manager, right? Whoever that's going to be. And we'll talk about that in a second. But that's who the manager really is. And they'll then lead the team. They'll manage the team like it would be a real football scenario where we're like the director of football. I say general manager because I like it to be more intertwined with baseball and how things would be run in this scenario. So we're the general manager. We're not the manager. We are the general manager. Very, very different. We're going to be hiring and firing our coaches and seeing how far we can get with our objectives. So the next question becomes, okay, how do you decide on the manager? How do we decide who the manager is going to be? So I think this is the point where you need to implement some rules within your save when you do this type of save. So our club reputation is currently, where are we here? We are currently a 3-star football club. So the rules are very simple for recruiting a manager. If you want to recruit a manager, if they have no club attached, if they're unemployed, they can match our reputation or be less. So we're a 3-star club right now. We can sign a manager. If we just go to a staff search here for a second, if we go to world reputation, let's just set it to like this. So there you are. If we were to do this, like right now, we'll go through this in the next episode, but we would look through here and the manager would have to be 3 stars in the reputation or less for us to be able to hire them. So it means basically when Pep leaves City in the save, I can't just go and get Pep and bring him straight in. That's not how it works, right? I can't just go and do that. If, however, they are already at a club, the club's reputation must be lower than ours. So we can't go to another 3-star football club and take their manager. The club's reputation has to be lower than ours. So if they're unemployed, they can match our reputation or be below. If they're another club, the club has to be below. We have to be a significant step up from the other club for them to come and join. But yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, as it appears. But that's largely the rules of the save. Is that, yeah, very simple. Match our stars if you're unemployed. The club has to be below ours if they already have one. And then, okay, what do we look for in a manager? You've got all the information you need on this page here. So we can't look at attributes, which I actually quite like that. You've got the reputation, of course, that's there. But it tells you their preferred formation and their secondary formation, right? So we get enough information there, and their tactical style. So tactical style, if you go to make a new tactic, they're all listed here, right? So let's just say they're a Gegenpress 4-2-3-1, right? Let's just say they're that. Now, they might change the player roles depending on a number of factors, but if they're going to play 4-2-3 Gegenpress, this is their tactical style here, right? This is their playing philosophy. The game model might tweak depending on their preferred roles and a few other things, the factors, right? But we know that's what they're largely going to play. So we're going to base it off of, first of all, their formation, their tactical style. That gives you an indication of their playing philosophy a little bit, right? And then another list here of 10s too. There's a lot of these that come into play as well. And the reputation, and the personality, and the coach qualification. There's actually quite a bit of information there for us to go off when we're trying to sign a new manager for the club. And in terms of the tactic, what I'll do is when we sign a new manager, in the tactic slot 1, we'll go their preferred formation with their tactical style. So that'll be tactical style 1. Tactical style 2 would be their second preferred formation with the same tactical style, of course. And then in the third one will be a tactic that I put in. This is where we get to, are we really going to be completely hands-off with things? Because let's say, for example, we sign a wonder kid 17-year-old who hits all the metrics, we sign him, and we all know he's going to be the next big thing. But there's a 25-year-old winger who's slightly ahead of him, and the manager keeps picking him. This has happened to me before when I've done this kind of save, and it's quite frustrating. Now, there is precedent from Billy Beane in the Moneyball example to force people to play the players you want them to play. Now, in the film, they get very fixated on the first baseman who was a catcher, and they want him to play basically out of position, in a brand new position, and the coach has got something else he prefers there because he's more inclined to be, that he thinks to be better in that position. But the stats say, and the metrics said, the player out of position was better to play. And in the film, they make a very funny sequence of where basically they trade every single player away in that position. So only the player remaining that they want to play out of position can then play there. Now, in the book, they do speak about a bit of this as well, where, yes, this sort of stuff did happen, but so there is precedent for us to force the manager to play a player if we need to. I'm going to try and stay completely hands-off and be like, we're going to recruit the team, you're the manager, you pick your players. As a professionally qualified football coach myself, I wouldn't want somebody telling me who I can and can't play and all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm going to give the manager full control to pick whoever he wants, whatever formation, he can do whatever he wants, right, at the start. If a scenario comes up, though, where we do get that kind of scenario where they're not picking the player that we need for the system and the Moneyball to work, then we can, if we need to, there is precedent to step in. Now, to go one step further than that, again, very different sports, but there was severe pressure from Billy Beane and Paul Di Podesta to the coaching staff and the players to not bunt and steal bases within their team. And these are things that are completely coach's decision, normally. And also right-handed versus left-handed pitchers and batters. This is all kind of stuff that lots of coaches care about, but they basically said, don't ever bunt. For the one time it works, multiple times it won't work, so it's not worth doing. Don't ever steal bases, and just pick the best player that we tell you to pitch, regardless if it's right hand or left hand, right? That's how they influence their team. And not that the coaches did it every single time. There still was some players that tried to steal bases and that tried, to bunt every now and again. But if you did that and weren't successful, you'd probably be out the door very quickly, right, for not adhering to the team philosophy. So there's precedent for that too. There's precedent to force a player in a position. There's precedent to tell the team to play in a certain style. But I'm not going to do that at the start at all. And even if we get to a scenario where I do have to do that because we're 15 years in and we haven't won a trophy yet, even if in that scenario we get to that, what I'm going to make sure of, I think we'll do it for semi-finals too, but definitely all finals, whatever competition, every single final is completely coach's discretion. Picks the whole team, whatever he wants, whatever tactic he wants, it's all down to him, right? So we have no influence whatsoever. We are just spectators of finals, which makes it a bit more exciting, right, as well. I'm going to try to do this anyway. I'm just saying, even in the worst case scenario, we're still not going to get involved. And I think I'll apply that to semi-finals too, because I think the success should be then the managers. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to watching certain AI managers play and feel like that, I like the style of football this AI manager plays, don't like this one as much, all that kind of stuff. I'm really looking forward to this. It's going to be very, very exciting. But yeah, that is the save. I was going to say in a nutshell, I think this video is going to end up being a lot longer than it was supposed to be for an episode 0. But I think we've broken it down pretty well. Yeah, we've gone through pretty much everything in the club's history. 11 league titles, but obviously not for a long, long time. 1935 being the most recent. Close in recent years, though. I have done these kind of saves before, relatively recently as well. I did one. And what I don't think you can ever get across is how much more difficult it is to sustain success when you're doing it this way, because you really don't have as much control as you think. You'll think, right, that I think most of us playing the game would feel like that playing as a team like Union, once you win the league 2, maybe 3 times in a row, you'd feel quite confident you shouldn't really lose it ever again in that kind of scenario. That does not apply to this kind of save. It really doesn't. We can only control so much. Like I said, there'll be limits anyway. Semi-finals and finals, I've got no involvement in whatsoever. We could even say, because of the league structure, we could even say for the second phase, for the championship phase, the same thing applies there. Once you get to that championship phase, after you play everybody twice, again, we can't get involved. Again, this is going way down the line. I'm largely going to try and just stay out of it completely. But if you've got any thoughts on how I'm going to structure the series, and you've got any suggestions, maybe you'd like something that I've said as a suggestion, maybe you think there's something that I should do completely differently. Whatever it is, please let me know, because I want as much of you to enjoy this as possible with me. So whatever you think is a better way to do it, let me know. I've always been open to tweaking things here and there. I think the only other thing I would mention is that if we do get a manager from a club that fits our criteria, the thing is, managers aren't going to sign for us. They're already at a club, because they're not going to go from being a manager to being an assistant manager, because that's how, in the game mechanics, that's how it's going to see it, right? Is the manager thinks we're trying to sign them as an assistant, so we can't physically actually do it. So that's where we'll have to use the editor. But what we will do in that scenario is I'll look at the person's contract before, and every time if we do ever have to do that, I will take out the money from my club, their full contract's worth of money, and then give it to the other club. So we've had to pay compensation for the manager. Again, if you've got any other suggestions for that, do let me know. If we fire somebody, we can just do that in the game. We can just go contract mutual termination for the assistant manager, and it'll be a lot of money, because it's obviously we're paying them the manager's wages, right? But that'll automatically come out of our bank balance anyway. But yeah, I think that's it. I think we'll leave it there. That is your introductory episode to the series, and episode 0, as it were. And in the next episode, what we'll do is we'll go and look for a manager. We'll hire some coaches. I think what we'll try and do when we hire a manager is, if they've got any favoured personnel, existing staff that they have, we'll bring them in, with them. And on top of that, what we'll try and do then is bring in, if we can't do that, we will try to bring in staff that match their philosophy. So managers that also, or coaches that do also have the same preferred tactical style and formation, all that kind of stuff as well. That's what we'll try to do as well. But that is going to do it. Billy, Beane, and Paul DiPotesta here in the room, in the Moneyball room, in the Moneyball office. We're going to be crunching the numbers, seeing who you can get. The first season is going to be like a stats generating season. We're not really going to sign anybody the first season. We could do it in January, but I think I'd rather just let it play out over the season and see what we can do. And it's good to see where we are, right? Because let's say we finish... Let's just see where we are. Let's just see where we are. Let's see where we finish. Let's see where we get to over the course of the season. And some of these episodes, I think early on, it'll be like the next episode will be searching for a manager, getting the staff in, playing a few games, probably setting us up for January. And the next episode will be January and then end of season, I guess. I mean, it depends what happens, of course. I don't know. Maybe we have to sack a manager. I don't know, straight away. Who knows? But that's the plan for the first episode. And then the summer transfer windows will be quite long. But basically what I'm saying is that some episodes will be like half a season here and there. But I think eventually, once we get into the routine of it, it'll be like one video per season. So each video that comes out will be an entire season. It'll be the Moneyball scouting, the Moneyball recruitment, the start of the season, going into Christmas, January, towards the end of the season, Champions League, and the season review. And I think that it'll either be one video will be the whole season or it'll be half a season. Early on, it'll be half a season because there'll be a lot of stuff for us to sort of get to go through. But if we're winning the league every year, if it gets to that stage, it'll definitely be like that, because basically that sort of like September to late December is just like it's a write-off, isn't it? For like, in terms of like interesting things to look at, what we're looking at is the transfer windows, how the European matches go, and how the season ends every year if there's a close title race. But yeah, okay. One final thing. Let's say all of it goes well, right? And we win the Champions League. We reach the pinnacle. The Moneyball system works. We win the Champions League, despite the fact that we will have an infinitely smaller budget than the teams at the top in the other leagues. What do we do then? Because to me, that would be our story at Union done. And the series could end, and I could maybe look at a second series with another one club save during the FM24 period cycle. Or we could leave Union and take our Moneyball project to another team and make it a bit of a journeyman. Now, if we do that, and we're thinking ahead here, if we do that, what I want is a very clear end goal, though, of what is that end goal. If we're going to jump around clubs, what is the end goal? I did have an idea before about doing a whole Moneyball journeyman save, but that was doing it while playing as like the head coach as well. This is a bit different. So basically taking our Moneyball general manager, system and applying it to other clubs, which is something that is very commonly done in baseball. Boston Red Sox famously tried to take Billy Beane and his whole project over to Boston, but he chose to stay in Oakland. But anyway, more thoughts for you all. Please do let me know all those things. I really need your interaction and support on the series to see where we're going to go with this. But that's going to do it for now. I'm going to get a drink, get some food. I'm going to come back and record the next part of the series because I can't wait to get this underway. But I'm excited for this. Thank you for watching. Hope you're going to enjoy the series. And I'll see you all, of course, next time.
I got to let it go and just enjoy the show.